Howdy doody. Welcome to episode 142 of TDI. This is Dr. O on the horn to start for yet another recap episode for House of the Dragon. I'm joined as always by the one and only Ricky Flicks. We are recording Sunday night of Labor Day weekend. How are you enjoying these 3 days, Ricky Flicks? It really shows our commitment to this pod, to the audience, and to Game of Thrones fans everywhere that we are doing this when we could have had a night off. Everyone else is sleeping right now, or everyone else is drinking, partying, whatever they're doing. Guess what we're doing? We're working for all you listeners. How you doing, Flex?
We're working for the people that have to work on Labor Day. Here you go. You're welcome. But also, thank you to House of the Dragon for another good episode. And I will say my initial reaction real quick. I know you didn't ask, but I just have to get it off my chest. This is the worst of the three. I know that question was coming. I just had to say it now. But the last 10 minutes recovered from what I did think was not the greatest episode so far. But I'm doing well so far. Thank you, Doc.
So you're giving the initial reactions. You jumped the gun a little bit. I'm okay with doing so. Let's just get into it, right? We're coming off watching the episode. We didn't get an early screener, some other podcasts that we listen to or that we have heard of or that populate this sphere. I think this is also the worst of the three, but I didn't think it was bad remotely. I think it was very character driven. It was a lot of focus on King Viserys. It's a lot of the relationship with Rhaenyra and what is Rhaenyra's path. And I think it actually points towards a direction for a lot of these main characters from the main direct, I should say, Targaryen family for the foreseeable future into the rest of season one. I thought the acting for this episode was arguably the best. I'm not going to lie. I think King Viserys was on another level. Paddy Considine, I thought he killed it this episode. A King Viserys who is going through inner turmoil, one who believes in gods and one who believes that they're going to guide him in the right direction. He's starting to question himself, right? One that is sensing a king that is frustrated and one that does not want to deal with politics. And he's had it up to here, right? With everything surrounding him and when it comes to the succession for his throne. And then Rhaenyra, the frustration that she's going through. I thought it was another great performance by Millie Alcock as, right, Rhaenyra Targaryen. And we got minimal Daemon Targaryen this episode, similar to episode 2, but we do have a strong sense of where his character will be going, right, in the future. And we see like how his relationship is he is estranged from King Viserys. All right. We got another time jump at the beginning of this episode. I think we're going to start there. We'll try and go sequential order for this episode. We got last episode, the shocking ending. We have Viserys announcing that Alicent Hightower, the Hand's daughter, will be the next, right, queen and his second wife, right? Following episode 1's death of Viserys' queen. We now jump from that announcement 3 years. We only had a 50-day time jump from 1 to 2. 3 years between 2 and 3. And Aegon Targaryen, the son of Alicent and Viserys, is already 2 years old. Questions are starting to come. It's just basically it's a one setting for, I want to say, 40 minutes of this episode. Second name day, right, for Aegon Targaryen. What do you think about this time jump, this 3-year period? I mean, are we going to get these replacement casts for next episode? How much do you think we're jumping next? It's only increasing from here. It was 50 days, 3 years. Are we going 5 years, 10 years next? What's going on?
I don't think we'll get the replacements yet. I think we're not going to go that far. I think for the replacements, it's going to – I keep thinking Keanu Reeves, a Gene Hackman movie. The replacements, I think we're a couple
Falco.
episodes.
When's Shane Falco dropping this season of House of the Dragon?
But yeah, no, I don't think we're getting the replacements next episode.
Rhys Ifans.
Yeah,
the replacements.
Yeah, kicker. But no, going back to this, it's just like they finally this episode. You said it, character driven, right? And I feel like we finally hit home with a lot of these characters, and based on their desire, we knew their desires and their passions and what they're all up to. But now we got like, all right, they dug deep, all three of them, Viserys, uh, uh, the woman.
Allison,
No.
Rhaenyra.
Rhaenyra, thank you, and then Damon. They they all had to dig deep this episode for different reasons, and
Mhm.
now it seems like all right, this is their base. We got the base for the show last episode, and what's going to come after that? This one's like all right, we got the base for our star characters for this season, and what we're gonna get out of each of them, not just from a story perspective, but their characters going forward and how what they're gonna be like, and that's what I really liked from this episode. And when I say it was my least I think it was the worst out of the bunch. I also think it was good. I just think that since it was such character driven, and we're used to Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon now, just having the surprises, the action, the aha moments. This one was just more of the Rhaenyra getting mad at Viserys and vice versa. A lot of the not the same politics, more just like an annoyance throughout most of this episode. But at the end of the day, it's what you said, character driven, and kind of like what I'm saying, setting the tone for the rest of the series with these characters. So I did like this episode overall, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this dynamic between the three of them, and let alone the Allison conundrum here that's got thrown into the wrench full force in this episode, how that's going to play effect with these three characters as well.
Yeah, and you bring up Allison, right? So formerly the best friend of Rhaenyra. Now it seems like they've grown estranged as well. Allison is still working somewhat like a spy for the Hand, right? For Risa Fonz's character. Risa Fonz, the Hand, is asking Allison still to try and steer, right, the king into pronouncing or announcing that Aegon Targaryen will be the next heir to the throne, right? So you still got Risa Fonz, right, as the Hand, as Hightower there, trying to supplant, right, and trying to like act like a Peter Baelish type character in this, yeah, little finger there, in this story so far. I find myself fascinated every time Risa Fonz is speaking in this show. I feel that the audience, when he is speaking, not only is he an amazing actor, and I think it's a strong performance by Risa Fonz, and I think he's perfect for this Game of Thrones world.
Yes.
Like he fits almost like too perfectly in. But
It's like what does in real life.
I find myself even rewinding his scenes because I got to pay attention to what he's saying because he is the one that is portraying that like everyone in Game of Thrones, no matter what your position is, everyone has a certain motive, right? And there's things where he is pulling strings behind the scenes that kind of make the show operate the way it does. And the king has full trust in him, and everything's worked out for him thus far. But I think we're getting to a point now, like the Hand is not really getting exactly what he wants in terms of Aegon being named as the successor to Viserys. We have at the end Rhaenyra speaking with King Viserys, and the king says to Rhaenyra, the king says to Rhaenyra, I wrote it down, that she will not be supplanted, right, as the next heir to the kingdom, right? So it's saying Aegon, as long as Rhaenyra is there, right, Aegon will not be the next king, which I think that supplies confidence in Rhaenyra after this 3-year period, this 3-year stretch where her and Viserys are drifting apart. Allison not exactly getting exactly what she wants out of the king, or the Hand getting exactly what they want out of the king. A little different change of direction there. I think we're actually building towards, we look at the future and we're going to see like this time jump. We're going to see actors supplanting other actors. I personally think that we are leading to a potential Aegon versus Rhaenyra in the future. We're not going as much as Daemon versus Rhaenyra, and it's not about the queen that never was versus Rhaenyra. I think we're going to get Aegon because we're going against like the rules of the gods, as Risa Fonz's character says here, and it's the rules of man, where the man will take over, right? It should be the firstborn son, and then you have the king saying Rhaenyra will be the successor no matter what. Do you think we might be lending more towards an Aegon versus Rhaenyra rather than a Daemon versus Rhaenyra?
Yeah, it seems like Damon's volatility is going to affect him at the end. I will say you saw he was failing in this, and he ended up being victorious at the end. But I don't know. You could just tell that I don't know if he has the makings as a long-term solution to be the king of Westeros here. So, and Aegon, just from namesake from Game of Thrones, is going to be a huge factor whenever he does come to play. I just don't know if we're going to get a big enough time jump where it's going to be him facing off with Rhaenyra yet. I think this season might set up the seasons to come with that battle, and that will be the highlight of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon in the future. And then just going back to the King's Hand and Race of Fines. Yeah, he's amazing in this show. Like he's probably my favorite, and I think the best. Or like I said, like he literally, it feels like he's so good that he feels like he does this in real life. It's scary, and you could tell like he's. I was doing like the orchestra like signs here. If you're watching on the YouTube, it's like he's pulling the strings. He's
the puppet master, dude.
Yeah, dude. He's literally orchestrating everything going on. He got his wish without even telling his daughter what his plan was, but basically got her to be queen, got the firstborn son, and now years have passed, and now it's like his next step. It's like getting that heir to change. And then what did we see at the end of this episode? We saw the preview for the next episode and thereafter, and there's something wrong with Rhaenyra and something with gossip and everything like that. Does he have a hand in that? I'm going to say yes. And we're going to see how that comes to come about. And when does the king see that he's orchestrating all of this? Will it be this season or in future seasons or never? Because obviously the king, this is the first episode they didn't refer to his affections or his cuts from the Iron Throne. So
more about the emotional and psychological damage being king has done to him, stress that he's going through.
I wouldn't be surprised next episode when we get a recap of like the first 3 episodes, they show that a little bit and refer to that next episode, since they kind of made us not think of that during this episode. Instead, they want us to focus on his quarrel with himself with the decision to make Rhaenyra heir and not Aegon, and everything that was going on in this episode. They wanted to focus on that. So it's going to be interesting when they bring that back and when the hands get his hands and everything else related to that. Going to be interesting.
And speaking of the hand, we got to talk about what other strings he's pulling in the background here. We have a new character introduced with the last name that should be familiar to all Game of Thrones fans. We have a Lannister in the mix. We have quick shout outs to like Dorne and then the House Stark. We've talked about House Valeria, right? And we obviously are dealing with the Targaryens here, but we have Jason Lannister, all right, of Casterly Rock. Hearing that again felt like really satisfying for a Game of Thrones fan. And he basically, you have the hand orchestrating a potential arranged marriage, right, for Rhaenyra and Jason Lannister. So the Lannisters aren't a proven house like they are in Game of Thrones, where they are literally in control of Westeros, right? Here, right, they're just they are wealthy, but they're not on the same level of like a Valeria or a Targaryen. They are on the way up, exactly. And we have Jason Lannister, who I didn't know was a Lannister when I first saw him. He doesn't have like the classic good looks, blonde hair like other Lannisters, but he does have the arrogance, the cockiness, and basically he's just not afraid to go up to anyone and just announce and almost have like give off that idea that he's better than you. And the Demons talked about by the king here when Viserys is saying like his pride has pride, I think is the quote he uses. Like it seems, I think he exudes that like a lot of Jaime Lannister energy, right? He just doesn't have the looks that go along with it. But what do you think about the introduction here and the potential match that the hand is trying to force upon, right, one Rhaenyra Targaryen?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't really think there's much to add except that dude was just creepy. This dude was creepy.
He was creepy.
And he was old, like older Lannister. I don't know, just very creepy and old. Didn't like that one bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume we're going to see that character more in the future. It seems like he had quite the presence in this episode. He had more screen time probably than Daemon Targaryen, and that's someone that we wanted to see since episode 1. I got to wonder if he's going to be participating in these wars in any type of way. There's been mention right at the end of the episode that the king wants Rhaenyra to find her own way, and whether that means traveling, trying to find right and establishing her own husband and like trying to gain her own power and not be so reliant on what's happening in Westeros. Maybe he becomes a factor in future wars, making alliances. You would assume so with House Lannister. I also want to bring up really quick, Ricky Flicks. We talked about Alicent earlier. I'm trying to like stay on like the king, the hand of the king, what's going on there. Aegon Targaryen's obviously 2 years old at the beginning of this episode with the time jump, but not only does Rhaenyra have a brother, but there is another baby on the way, okay, in Alicent's belly, right? During this episode. This also could play a factor. Maybe it shows that, like, if this is another son, it could be hinting at maybe this Aegon doesn't have a bright future, and that there's going to be another successor looking to take control later on in future seasons. Did you think about that at all when you saw that Alicent was pregnant again? Like, this could be another, like, I guess, point of turmoil within the Targaryen family.
So my thought when I saw the another child was, okay, well, this one might be the deciding factor, like as in which side will the child take? Will it take Aegon's or Rhaenyra's if there's ever a battle? That was my initial thought. And then also, like, what's the name so we can kind of connect to the Game of Thrones and like and all the other Targaryens that we know that come later down the road that we're more aware of due to Game of Thrones. That's what I was trying to connect the dots in my head. Don't have a good guess yet, but yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I also just want to also say this actually. Alicent, how many, like, that baby, that pregnant, like the bump in the belly, does not look real. And how is she like a magnet to it? She constantly is touching that thing.
Well, that's most mothers, though, right?
No way they touch it that much.
One hand on the top, the other one on the bottom.
Stop.
They just walk with it, right? It's kicking nonstop. You're calming down the baby. That's a thing. How can you not?
There wasn't a scene where her hand wasn't on it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Who cares?
Like, I was thinking about that every time she was on the screen.
So it makes me think that she really values this next baby, and
and
knowing Game of Thrones, it could have a torturous end and could be very sad. I don't know. We've already seen one baby die in the first ever episode we got of this show. I feel like there's no such thing as a darker thought or something that can't potentially happen when you're thinking about negatives and like death in this series. Speaking of death, I thought for a second that Daemon might have been meeting his end at the end of this episode. I know we've seen like sneak peeks in the future of this season. We've seen like Daemon versus Viserys, like literally a one-on-one within like the quarters, I think, at Westeros. That's in future ones that they've hinted at when it says next up on House of the Dragon. But we have a situation here where Daemon is fighting with the Valyrians on in the Stepstones. They're dealing with the crab feeder situation. Seems like a pretty electric villain, one of the classic ones, almost like a mountain where it's like just like visually kind of like you can't stop looking at him, but also like so ugly, and at the same time will not say a word, but you're transfixed on like knowing more about this character. The crab feeder has a brutal end to the story, but we have a situation where they're during this 3-year time jump. We saw at the end of episode 2, Corlys Velaryon allying with Daemon Targaryen and his troops so they could take care of the crab feeder situation. This was an opportunity for Daemon Targaryen to prove himself. Viserys, right, well, he's staying out of this situation, didn't want to waste the resources available. And then after 3 years, it seems like this is an issue that Viserys has to turn to. He doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to be involved with politics. He doesn't want to be involved with Daemon, right? After the controversy surrounding like what happened when his initial son died, Balon Targaryen, and his wife, and his reactions to that. So the king decides, right, at the end that he's going to help out the Valyrians. He's going to help out Daemon. And then Daemon has this response saying, you know what? These guys, there's dissension between the Valyrians, his soldiers, and Daemon. I'm just going to do it myself. He takes on the crab feeder, draws out the troops, opening up an opportunity for the dragons to absolutely eviscerate the crab feeder and his soldiers. So I just wanted you to get your thoughts on the actions of Daemon here. Do you ever think that he was potentially going to die when he was holding that white flag? Just give me your thoughts on that whole sequence and what were your takeaways?
No way I thought he was dying. Absolutely no way. This guy's a man of deceit, as we've seen.
He's a dirty player, dude. When he's holding up the white flag, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, like even in the tournament, he was a dirty player. Like, no way this guy was surrendering. Like, even they hinted at that the episode. The series said like he'd rather die than lose this war. Like, he's gonna die, and that suicide, like mission that he did. Like he did not know those people were like the cavalry was coming. Like he was doing that like suicide. I'm finishing this myself, or
Well,
I'm
he was
dying.
so upset, and then
Right
this
from the
as
note.
what we said before, like the end of episode 2, Corlys says this is an opportunity for you to prove yourself, and there's been nothing but failure these past 3 years. And then at the point where now King Viserys is sending his resources for once and for all. The king wants to be seen as a little bit stronger, one as a capable leader, and if he's
Right.
able to solve the stepstone issue, and then it would kind of put away this ideas of succession, people doubting him, like Rhaenyra being a woman successor to the throne. If he's able to end the stepstone issue and also satisfy House Valeria, we're on the up and up. Daemon is
Not
not
so
willing to
fast.
accept that. Daemon is not willing to accept that. He's one of those guys where he's not going to fail under any circumstances. And he's willing to do whatever it takes, right, to be successful, even if it means waving a white flag, right, taking on everybody at once. I'm not sure. I'm not really convinced that Daemon, knew that the troops were coming behind him.
He
I kind
didn't.
of think that he didn't. And it made me think like he would rather die than accept help from his brother.
Yes.
And it was just happened to work out that he drew out the troops because he's such a monster of a freaking warrior that he has to, it's going to take 50 of those guys at minimum to take him out. So they see the dragon sees an opportunity. The troops are following close behind, and it works out better than Daemon could have ever assumed, because I think he was very much accepting his death, right, when he's going to take on the Crab Feeder there.
Yes, that he did not know they were coming. That was a suicide mission, that like no doubt, and he did not know they were coming. And it's just interesting because before the note and before he even gets to the Corlys and his brother in the council meeting there, like the Corlys's brother's like, Daemon should be the one that goes like by himself, and he literally took that to heart and he went by himself. And you could tell that not only was it the mission, not only what his determination from his brother, but also saying, I lost my faith in my men and my allies here. You know what? I'm going to do what they said like I wouldn't do and do it myself. So I like, that's the type of character that we want to see. And like back to the character development, it's like this was the stepping stone for Daemon for the rest of this season, at least, and probably series. And it shows in the little sneak peek teaser where he goes back to Westeros, King's Landing, and he looks different. He has some sort of crown because he says he's the
named
king,
a king.
of the. Yeah, he's like a king of something. I forget the C words or something.
That was a river, something river.
Yeah, so like already he's gaining recognition. He proved his worth. The king did not prove his worth, especially without the regard to naming his firstborn male heir, but still with Rhaenyra. So he still has doubts over his legacy and his kingdom versus Daemon. There is no questioning now. Now it's this guy's on the rise. The king is on the fall. There's heir troubles. At least the gossip around the kingdom is they don't trust Rhaenyra and the king's judgment. So you can trust Daemon in his judgment because he can get the job done. And I think also just real quick, not to backtrack too much, I forget his name, but the guy on the council that always gives advice to Viserys.
Hightower, the Hand?
Not the hand, and not Corlys, and not the master.
The guy who looks like Samwell Tarly and
yes,
looks
and
sounds just
again,
like him.
yes, again, he said
Break bones or something, bare bones.
Yeah, whatever it was. But again, he mentioned he should marry Rhaenyra should also bond with Corlys.
I was just about to get to this. Yeah.
So I think that's also just a little nugget that we should remember is that again, it's now that the Corlys was like successful with Daemon, will they ever end up doing that with Rhaenyra going out and venturing on her own for a potential husband? I don't know. And will it be? They also kind of like overshadowed the fact that his son, who's allegedly one of the best, if not the best knight in the kingdom, is also on the market. Why bring that up?
It feels like The Bachelor right now. It feels like The Bachelor. Who's going to get the rose, right? We got Jason Lannister in one corner. We got this newly introduced, right, Valerian prince, right, the brother, of the sister that was going to marry King Viserys, potentially in an arranged marriage. A 12-year-old, one of the creepiest moments in Game of Thrones history. We also have, obviously, Bare Bones, Break Bones, whatever that guy's name, the greatest knight in the kingdom. And then we have Kristen Cole, who's still there. The Night's Watch seems like we
Jon
have a
Snow.
moment where Rhaenyra is like bonding with him, and then until like Rhaenyra goes crazy and takes all her pent up rage on a wild boar. But I also want to talk about the prince, right, the son of Corlys of Valeria. I think it's interesting because Corlys, after making the alliance with Daemon at the end of episode 2, saying that he thinks this is an opportunity for Daemon to prove himself as opposed to the weak-minded King Viserys, or at least at the end of episode 2, it seems like Viserys actually has some positive momentum going into the next episode. During the time where they're mapping out the battle, right, of how, like, not even map out the battle, it's just like, hey, this is the circumstance right now. It's Stepstone. We have the son believes in Daemon more than Corlys. I'm just wondering about a future alliance between the son of Corlys and Daemon Targaryen, because they're young, they're fierce warriors, and it seems like they actually believe in one another. I don't know what's going to happen exactly with Corlys himself. Corlys finally is given the aid at the last second, right, by Viserys. Maybe that relationship starts to mend a little bit, but is House Valeria going to start to get torn apart a little bit because of the dynamic between Daemon and this new prince? Do you think they're striking up a relationship there? Do you think they're going to be confidants of one another? And how does this dynamic change if all of a sudden the prince of Valeria is having a relationship with Rhaenyra? That could really change the game too. Interesting to see how these dynamics play out.
Right, and then it's like first episode. The only thing that could divide the House of the Dragon is itself. I feel like Rhaenyra going with them, Daemon also with them, but not on the same side, not the same family. So it's dividing up Valyria and also dividing up the Targaryens. And then you got Aegon in the other corner. So it's a triangle effect here. And instead of being united as one, you're divided as three. One of them comes out victorious, and then they rule. But then the Baratheons show up for Game of Thrones later down the road. So
after the Mad King,
right? So it's going to be an interesting scenario. I think for this season, though, just staying like micro for a second, going back to just this season, is because I don't think we'll see that at all this season. I just think that now that we have everything set, it's like, all right, now we got to set up what we just talked about. How are they going to do that this season? And I think the stories played out, the characters have played out. Let us just roll. I feel like I think this is the third straight episode I'm saying this, but I feel like the show is going to take off very, very soon. And the politics, yeah, sure, like a lot of this is politics, and that's just Game of Thrones. That's why we kind of love it, to mix with the gore, action, sex, whatever you want to say. But I feel like not only that, but also battles will pick up, and the politics will actually have some consequences coming up.
Yeah, 100%. And then, like, when you talk about the politics of it all, the stress on the decision of succession by the king, he's drinking heavily, right? He's becoming frustrated with those who are close to him. He feels like those who are recommending potential suitors for Rhaenyra are only in it for themselves. And so he feels there's a lack of trust. The only person he really is taking in as a confidant is the Hand of the King. And interestingly enough, he's probably the most dangerous out of anyone that he's been talking to. And maybe he doesn't even realize it. But I do want to talk about that moment where Rhaenyra, like, this pent-up aggression, and you have Viserys wants the best, he says, for Rhaenyra, and he thinks that's the best way for him to treat her is to, and like bend their relationship, is to find a husband. Okay. And that's when he forces on Jason Lannister. And then there's other people are whispering other different names and things of that regard. I'm just interested, like, who do you see in the immediate future her striking a relationship with? Who is the one that she is going to match with and team up with, I want to say, okay, going into the future at the end where you have Viserys saying you have to find your own way, you got to create your own path. What are you going to do? Strengthen your claim, he says. How is she going to do so in the coming episodes if she's away from Westeros?
Well, in the teaser at the end, again, there's something wrong with the relationship. You think it's fine after this episode with her father, but then something happens similar to the Daemon and Viserys, where the brothel situation, then he loses the heir. Similar vibes with this teaser, something that she's been accused of doing, that maybe the heir gets taken away from her. So how do you strengthen your claim, similar to what Daemon's doing, to prove your worth? Do you join in with Daemon? Do you join in with the Corlys' son? What do you do? I think that it's possible that we might not even have seen her potential husband yet.
Yeah,
So
100%. In like these, it just seems interesting because it seems like Jason Lannister, as much as like the name Lannister sticks out, seems like that's a suitor
Too
she does
early.
not want to be associated with. Valerians don't exactly have the best relationship with her father. They don't really respect the Targaryens too much at this point. Kristen Cole has no royalty to his name. The biggest honor his family's ever had is the fact that he was named like the Knight of the King's Watch, right? That's the biggest thing their family's ever done. So it doesn't seem like they could really become married and then actually have a strength, like as we say, strengthen Rhaenyra's claim. What I was thinking of, we brought out incest before, the potential that Daemon would actually have a relationship with Rhaenyra. I think this actually strengthens it, that idea, by the fact that Aegon, we might have a time jump later on, and Rhaenyra sees a possibility to team up with Daemon to make sure
Right.
the Targaryens have a strength, like a strong hold, right? So the bloodline remains strong with the king and queen. That's where I think we're going, And I think it's kind of an unexpected twist where we just immediately think we thought it was initially just going to be Daemon versus Rhaenyra. I think Aegon throws a whole wrench in this, and same with the time jump plot.
And it makes sense from the first episode where Daemon's on the Iron Throne and she goes up to Daemon and Daemon gives her a necklace. And that was kind of an intimate moment a little bit there. And then the second episode, who's one of the few people that could talk to Daemon, if not the only person, it's Rhaenyra. And then
She made him look weak.
Yeah, and I think that is a strong possibility. And it just depends, though, is because it seems so obvious. But what does Game of Thrones likes to do? What do they like to do? Throw a wrench in our plans. And I just don't trust these. I don't trust these writers, these showrunners. As in, I trust them in their decision making, but I don't trust them when we make predictions. None of it ever comes true.
Yeah, and we should know that if you are on Reddit ever, when you're looking at Game of Thrones theories, it's like 1 in 100 that actually pan out and they're actually correct. But I think it's also good that we actually don't have familiarities with the books. We don't know what was written. George R. R. Martin is very much having a strong presence on these shows. I'm glad I haven't read the books, to be honest, right? I love having these episodes, these reactions. We might sound like the smartest people alive. We might sound like the dumbest people alive. But I think based on the information that's been given to us through 3 episodes, we're doing pretty good with these predictions, right? And the introductions of these unknown characters are only going to bring further questions. Cannot wait for more. Don't know when the time jump is going to be where we change actors, but all I know right now, I'm really enjoying Matt Smith. I think Paddy Considine has been like, this was his moment. This felt like his episode compared to like Daemon was the first episode, right? He starred the show a little bit. Rhaenyra was somewhat the star of the show, the second
Scene
one.
stealer.
But I would say like it was like a lot of the episode was written for that character. A lot was written for Daemon to put him in the spotlight. The second one, right? A lot for Rhaenyra to be put in the spotlight. This third one, I think it was a showcase for Paddy Considine as Viserys, and I think he absolutely stole the show. And the fact that he was given these type of lines, right, and had this type of performance, I can't see him lasting much longer when you factor in the time jump, along with the amount of screen time that was given, and how much he's been drinking, how much stress that he's under right now. He looks older with this time jump, with this 3-year time jump. And there was there wasn't even a mention of like the infections that he has, right? His health overall. You could just see it, right? During this, year of the second birthday, right? I forgot what they call it. Name day of Aegon Targaryen.
But I just get so much Ned Stark vibes from him ever since episode 1. I just think he's and the actor himself. This is a one and done.
But Ned Stark was strong. He just made decisions that were too moral.
Again, as viewers, as like Game of Thrones fans, we love Ned Stark. But they even say it in the show. Ned Stark wasn't necessarily the smartest guy in the room.
No, just highly moral. Too moral.
Right, exactly. And I feel like Viserys is different characters, but I get the same vibes where he's a one and done. One season, done.
Making decisions with his heart as well, which is very similar to a Ned Stark. Like where you have that moment at the end where he's not committing succession to this firstborn like most rulers would do. Like the Lannisters, they would just go firstborn son. Unless unless it was someone that maybe wasn't fit to rule, like a Tyrion Lannister potentially, where they thought he was not wasn't fit to rule, although he was more than capable, probably, right? It's just based on tradition, what the gods say. And then Ned Stark is like, well, this is what's best, right? This is what's just, this is what's fair. You play like that, you don't win the Game of Thrones.
Right. And like there's been hints at the infection already. There's been hints that he's not a good ruler. Like episode 2, uh he's like Damon, when he says like Corlys is like, what is he not good at? And he's like, ruling. Like he's not going to be ruling forever. He's not going to be he's not going to be when this series wraps up in I don't know how many years. We're not going to remember Viserys as like one of the namestays like of House of the Dragon at all. We just know him for now, but it's going to be the same thing. I just get the same vibes.
Okay, interesting. And as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say crab feeder, the tearing of the torso, seeing the intestines. Seems like we're also we didn't have like any orgies, no sex or anything here, but the gore, right? You didn't show the death of the crab feeder at the hands of Daemon Targaryen, but just seeing him drag him when he basically doesn't have a bottom half of his body and throw him back in the water, I just thought like, okay, this is going to be like a turning point for Daemon Targaryen. Him taking down the crab feeder, this 3-year battle. The king is about to send his resources to go help Corlys and this battle at Stepstones. He says, I'm going to do it myself, intends to die, right? Lives, supported by the dragon, supported by the troops around him who he had thought had given up on him. This is a turning point, I think, where he is going to now challenge the throne now that he has proven himself, like we talked about. And I'm excited to see, right, along with that venture, where Rhaenyra goes next and who she takes back to Westeros with her.
Yeah, it's like he's becoming like the name of the episode is like childhood or something like that. It's like he's becoming an adult. Like not only are people following him because of like he's just an inspiring person, like the Night's Watch. It's like he also not only proves it, but he's like, oh, like I'm behind. Like he proves it, but also he's ready. Like he's gonna be a king of something, whatever the river is. And he killed like another king, the Crab Feeder King, or whatever you want to say. Like again, not only has he proved it, but he also has that respect because of it. And he not only will he get followers, but like devoted followers, which kings get.
His
And
legend grows, his
exactly.
resumes are added
Yes.
to the resume, and then when they write those stories and those legends and things are told, right, regarding these rulers, he wants like to keep adding to that and eventually become king again, restore his succession to the throne. And maybe the king even reconsiders. Maybe he says instead of Rhaenyra, instead of Aegon,
That would be
maybe he reinstitutes Daemon because Daemon's such a force, and maybe he becomes an important asset to the king like he was previously. Highly unlikely, right? As I said before, we make a bunch of predictions that sound stupid, but that would be one of the stupid ones. All right. Anything else before we wrap up here? I think this also was a really good episode for like people that enjoy good dialogue, but also symbolism. We got the boar being stabbed,
the White Heart.
the White Heart, and then you have like that opportunity that the king has. He looks weak at that point too, where he can't kill the moose, right? The non-white one. I guess
Brown
the moose.
Heart.
Is it Brown Heart? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
So it takes him 2 stabs to kill it, and it's like right after Rhaenyra like stabs the boar, comes back to camp, has blood all over her, and people are looking at her like, "Oh my god, look at this freak!" But at the same time, like it's kind of badass that she's walking through. The king can't kill right the Brown Heart immediately, right? But we have Rhaenyra walking back to camp on the name day, right? And she's got blood splattered all over her face. I just gained a little bit of respect for her there. And I think other people did as well, thinking like, oh, the king couldn't kill this animal, but look who's walking back with a boar, right? That's cooked on the table in a few hours. And now, like, it just shows her she's kind of a savage, even though she's a woman. I think it actually did a lot for her.
Yeah, and then the symbolism as well, like showing, oh, it's not a White Heart, it's a Brown Heart that he's gonna kill. So
And he
keep
sees
my
those
heir.
visions of the White Heart.
Right, so I'm gonna keep my heir the way it is. It's gonna be
Exactly.
Rhaenyra. So that's where the big symbolism. He's a big history guy, like you were saying before, and symbolism. I think that's the big takeaway with that. But yeah, I totally agree. It makes him look weaker versus like a Rhaenyra who didn't need someone to go track it for her or kill it or like basically tie it up so then she could kill it for her. Like she killed the wild animal on her own and got the blood all over her and everything. Like again, walking back into camp with Sir Kristen and he was like knocked out, so like he wasn't even a part of it. So like just props to her and got mad respect, not just from the audience members, but from the actual people in the show.
No respect for my boy Kristen Cole. Like right after he gets like run by a boar, and then Rhaenyra gets all this like accolade as she comes back, and Kristen Cole we just don't hear from. He got rocked. He got rocked. Like potentially
Destroyed.
like I thought he got pierced. I thought those tusks like tucked right underneath his ribs. I'm like, are we gonna lose Kristen Cole right after we get this moment
Concussed.
with him and Rhaenyra? Interested if he's going to be as relevant in the next episode or not. I have a feeling like we're not going to see much of Kristen Cole in the next few episodes, but I could be wrong once again. I could sound dumb. All right. That's going to do it for our episode 3 reaction for House of the Dragon. What's coming up on the feed this week, right? We're also going to recap the first 2 episodes for the Rings of Power. If you're looking to preview, right, the first 2 episodes, or even if you've seen the first 2 episodes and want to continue with your Lord of the Rings content, right? And what you can do is check out our draft that's on our feed. We had Big Mike on the horn. Hopefully he can join us for the recap that we're releasing later this week. If not, Ricky Flicks and I will be on the horn. We also have the checkup coming up this week. Not a lot of movie news last week, so we didn't have a checkup. Guess what? Now things are flowing in. Standing ovation times are back. Brendan Fraser news. Darren Aronofsky's The Whale premiering at Venice Film Festival. Timothée Chalamet movie premiering at Venice Film Festival. We'll go over everything that we've been hearing. And then we got She-Hulk later on in the week. So make sure that if you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We got these recaps, these reactions. We got drafts coming out on the YouTube regularly. Check out the feed and make sure you're following us on social media. Keep up to date with all the latest movie news and for just some funny ass content. All right. For Ricky Flex, this is Dr. O, and that's going to do it for episode 142, excuse me. Until next time, we will smell ya.